Howdy. This is Mission Texas,
a political podcast about winning Texas by 2032, or else we may lose the White House for a generation.
I'm one of your hosts, Alex Clark.
And I am Kate Rumsey.
Other podcasts may focus on the day-to-day or the next election, but we are keeping the eyes of Texas on the bigger prize. What happens after the next census?
All right, welcome to the podcast, a very special ladies only podcast with Kristian Carranza, who's running for office again in San Antonio. Welcome. I'm so happy to have you.
I'm so excited. I know. And I love the feminine energy today. And it's a big day. It's Taylor Swift's album launch today. So I know you're a big Swiftie like me. That's not all we're going to talk about, but I am excited to talk about it. And I'm just really excited to run again for 118.
Yeah. Well, we are not purposefully excluding Alex. He's got a family thing today, but I think it is appropriate that you and I are talking on Taylor Swift Day, on the day of her release, because we can talk about that, but also because you know Alex outside of or from politics, I believe, and I didn't really know you much until recently when we're starting this podcast. So I think it's a great conversation for us to have, because it'll be like me just getting to know you like anybody else. And I think that'll be great.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And it's so full circle, because when I first met Alex, we were both baby organizers, just starting off our political organizing careers. And I know that Alex has done other things since then, but for me, it was my very first time getting to organize my community. We were both field organizers for Wendy Davis when she ran for governor in 2014. I don't know if you can see it, but I had this Cruz Ortiz, you can see it says Wendy right there.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's an old school Cruz Ortiz poster, and that Wendy actually signed. And so anyway, but it was, for me, the most empowering experience of my life. And so me and Alex were actually specifically campus organizers for her. And so we did a lot of voter registration. Voter registration is still the thing that I'm most passionate about when it comes to organizing. So it's just really exciting that I get to be on this podcast and get to talk about, how I got started in this work.
Yeah, well, can you speak a little bit? Well, I don't think we can go any farther until we talk about Taylor Swift and her album, who she herself is a political person and tried to weigh in last year on some of the races, which to me, it was interesting. I heard a lot of friends, a lot of Swifties, who said, Swift Nation's going to come and rescue all of us and we're all going to vote, the same way. And I don't know. I don't know what happened, if it was, if they did all vote or they just didn't vote with Taylor, but regardless, do you have any reflections first on her album? Anything that stands out?
Oh my gosh. I am what they call a glitter gel pen Swiftie, a glitter pen Swiftie. And so I love the pop hits. I know that she worked with Max Martin on this album, and he's done Britney and Backstreet Boys and all the best millennial pop hits that we love. So I was really excited about it. And so I stayed up till 11 o'clock last night to listen to the album, and I'm in love with it. I'm completely obsessed. I want to know what your favorite song is, but mine right now is Wood, WOOD. Wood. It is just such a banger, and it kind of reminds me, the riff of it kind of reminds me of ABC by the Jackson 5.
Yeah,
so it's nostalgic, it's fun, it's groovy, and I don't know, it just sparks joy.
Yeah, no. I tried to stay up, and I fell asleep right before 11 Central. But I got up at 5 or 5:30 because that's what we do nowadays with my 3-year-old. And I was playing some of the songs, and some of them are explicit. So I was like, whoa, 5:30 in the morning. There was one, but one of the ones I really like, to your point, is Almost Romantic, because the beginning has this really cool guitar riff that really sounds like Weezer or Green Day. And I love that track once I got to it. And of course, Opalite, because I believe that's about Travis Kelce. My friends and I are just texting all day long about this. So I'm so happy that you're a Swiftie as well. But getting back, yeah. I wonder what Alex would say if he was on this podcast right now. But my husband, when I woke up, he was like, what's going on with Taylor Swift? I don't understand. Something's happening. And first of all, my jaw was on the floor. How can you not understand what's going on, or even know or have the wherewithal about what's happening with Taylor Swift? But also, how dare you not know as well? So I was telling him quickly, what's going on. because my friends and I are going crazy. Yeah.
I love it. And just to wrap up our little Taylor section, I didn't want to say that, because I ran last cycle and it was a really close race and it was a heartbreaking loss, but I learned a lot throughout the campaign. I'm seriously so grateful. I think that's the thing is like I woke up the next morning with so much gratitude in my heart. And I didn't cry the entire night. I woke up and I was feeling hopeful, and as one does, put on Taylor Swift, and the first song that came up was "Only the Young," if you remember from her Miss America,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
like running for office, and it was just it really touched my heart, and that's like when the tears actually started to flow,
Mhm.
and I let it all out. But no, I'm a big fan of Taylor Swift's music, and I'm so happy that she's gotten political and is like using her platform for good. I think that even the power of Taylor Swift, but it was hard to combat a lot of what was going on last year with the political rhetoric, with just the political environment. But I think that this year we're seeing a shift, and I feel like this cycle is going to be one of the best cycles for Democrats in the next, I would say 5 or 6 years. So I'm actually still feeling
Wow.
really hopeful, and I think that people are a lot more leaned in right now.
I love that. I want to talk about that some more, but getting back to the fact that you ran before in last cycle, you and I both ran, me in the primary, you got to the general, and it was a flip. You were trying to flip the seat. But as I understand it, this time around, this is an open seat. And so you have even more of an opportunity. You don't have to go against an incumbent.
That's right. So my state house seat 118, it's all within Bexar County here in San Antonio, and so the incumbent is actually going to run for Congress under the new lines, which is the only silver lining to all of this BS. So
Yeah.
it's an open seat, I announced back in June. And so I've been running now for a few months, and I've been knocking doors. I knocked 10,000 doors last cycle, and I'm continuing to knock doors now. And so people are really excited, when I tell them it's open.
Good.
It was a really close House race. It came down to 3 points last November, which was the closest state House race that we had in Texas in the general. And so, I'm just getting everybody excited again. I think that this cycle, like I mentioned, is going to be really good for us. A lot of what I do on the doors is just talk to folks about issues that they care about. It's a really working class community. So that's what our conversations look like.
Yeah. I know. I think when we talked to Kendall Scudder, the chair of the Texas Democratic Party, he was saying it's not just about knocking doors. We have to knock doors, obviously. And I want to ask you more about that, but also what we're saying at the doors and being a party for the working class, a party that is talking to their issues at the door in what they're experiencing in their homes. And one of the things that Alex and I were reflecting on when we were starting this is that, look, we have to define ourselves as a party and not just in contravention to the president and what's going on, especially in DC. So like what is affecting people in their homes. But how did it go from you lost, you were listening to Taylor Swift, you're feeling hopeful. Did you know right away that you wanted to run again? Because for me, I was having a moment when I lost that I just wanted to stay in bed and listen to like the sadder Taylor Swift stuff. So how did that go for you?
It was a roller coaster of emotions. I was, like you, I think I stayed in bed for about a solid 2 weeks. And then I think the first place I went to after I got up and out of my apartment was the Dollar Tree, like around the corner from where I live in my neighborhood. And I got immediately recognized by this older gentleman. And he told me like, oh, there she is, and like this big smile on his face. And it just made me feel like, feel good and feel seen. And I think that a lot of people supported me, and I'm really grateful for that. I think the hardest thing to get over was, like I said, it wasn't that I was like ashamed of losing, or because I thought I might feel that. I was like, oh, I wonder if I lose, if I'm gonna feel like so embarrassed, and it wasn't that, right? But I think that there was this feeling of like, oh, I let so many people down, people that, had a lot of hope for not just me, but what I represented, and just doing the best for our community. And so that was a hard part to get over for me. But how I knew I was ready to run for office again was there was a town hall that the incumbent was there, but he wasn't participating in, and he was in the audience. And there was like the last 10 minutes, there was like a Q&A. And so and I hadn't even planned to do this. It was kind of like my body was just kind of had a mind of its own. They were like, if anyone wants to come up, there's a mic in the aisle. And I got up, and I was the first, and I grabbed the mic, and I thanked folks for putting on this public education town hall. And then I thanked, my state rep for being there. And I said, thank you, sir, for being here, part of this conversation. Will you commit today, right now, to hosting a town hall yourself? Because your constituents, when we want to talk to you, we're bracing ourselves for more school closures. And he was completely caught off guard. He's never held a town hall before. And, he gave this like bumbling answer. and I realized in that moment, like I'm back in the fight. I'm ready to do it again. This is a platform that anyone can have. But for me, it's a big responsibility, and I don't take it lightly, having the opportunity to represent my community. So, once I had the fire back, I knew I was ready to come back again.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I was running, everyone asked me, well, why are you doing it? Like, why are you running?
Yeah.
And it was this thing of, what's your why? And has your why evolved? Like, what got you from the Wendy Davis days to today?
Wendy Davis, starting organizing, like I mentioned earlier, it really was an empowering experience for myself. I didn't know that you could just like ask for things you need. I know it's just like right. But it, being an organizer really does push you to kind of get out of your comfort zone, right? And it's all about, identifying a problem and pulling people together, because, when you're a single voice, people may not hear you, but when you have, a room full of people, no one can ignore you. So I've learned how to be able to work with people and talk to people about the issues that matter most to them throughout my career. But the catalyst to me running for office, and I'm running for the same reasons, is around public education in Texas. So San Antonio is the epicenter for school closures in our state. We've had around 30 schools close just since I started running for office. And these are schools, right? These are schools that neighborhoods like mine absolutely rely on. So I was raised by a single mom, and we relied on the before school program, the after school program, the summer meal programs. Like that was just a part of life. And so, and I think that part of how we kind of see our schools, not just as places to get educated, but as safety nets. And for many of us, our last remaining safety nets, I think that sometimes that conversation gets lost because a lot of people who run for office don't come from working class backgrounds, or don't come from backgrounds where parents have to rely on things like childhood programs and after school programs. So that's why I did this, right? Because I knew that families like mine were going to be devastated. So I put my name in the hat, and I'm doing this again because although private school vouchers have passed in Texas, that doesn't mean that we have to let go of this fight and that there's not work we can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, we have a school around the block from me in Coppell, which is a suburb of Dallas, they're talking about closing. And there's already yard signs going up saying Save Town Center, which is a big elementary school here. And in my public school district in Carrollton Farmers Branch, which is also in North Texas, we already had closures. And I saw people who were not political suddenly pop up and say, whoa, wait, what's going on? How are these closing? Yeah. And so I'm wondering, you mentioned earlier knocking on thousands of doors. Was that something that was on people's minds? Because something that I did whenever I knocked a door was not just talk about myself, but ask them, what's on your mind? Like, what is affecting you? And how can we, let's talk about it? Instead of just being like, hi, I'm Kate, I'm running for office. So what did you hear when you were knocking on all those doors?
I mean, public schools is one of the number one, if not number one, number two issue. It's, for a lot of families where I live, it's public schools are kind of how you, okay, let me start over. When it
Yeah.
comes to San Antonio, we have this thing called the burning question. Have you heard about this?
Mm.
So
No, tell
the
me.
burning question is, so when you find out somebody is from San Antonio, the first thing you ask them is, what high school did you go to? Because
Oh my gosh, yes.
it tells you literally everything you need to know about somebody. They like where they're from, or how they grew up, and we're all like 1 to 2 degrees away from everybody. So, when I
Mm-hmm.
knock on doors, the first thing I say is, "Hi, I'm Kristian Carranza. I went to McCollum High School." And then they usually stop me. They're like, "Wait, I went to McCollum," or "My grandkids go to
I love
McCollum,"
that.
right? It's kind of
Yeah.
that instant connection. But more to the point is that our public schools are really the heart of our communities. So it really is one of the, most important issues for people. So folks were absolutely leaned into the issue of private school vouchers. I mean, it's purposefully a complicated issue to understand sometimes, just because there's just a lot going on with it. But people understand that it's not okay to take money away from poor kids and give that money to rich kids on the other side of town. They
Mm-hmm.
understand that's not right. And so a lot of the conversations that I had were around, like voter education, about the issue, but also just talking about like how it would directly impact us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting talking about cultural differences because when we're talking about the big picture of our podcast, which is flipping Texas and messaging and how we do it, we have to recognize that we have some of the largest cities in the nation, and Dallas, San Antonio, Houston are of those, and they're not the same. And Dallas, I would think, is basically the opposite. I know more people not originally from Dallas than are from Dallas, and so when you talk about that cultural, like who are they wanting to vote for, I don't think ties to your high school or where you're from are necessarily what drives people to the ballot box, at least not from when I was talking to people, and you've got people running for office. So it was never like, oh, where'd you grow up? It was more like, what can you do for our community? Like, how do you prove that you care about it? And so it's interesting to hear the cultural differences. And when I think about San Antonio and our mission here at Mission Texas, we're both. I'm Catholic. My co-host is Christian. We've got the Spanish missions in San Antonio. We both have a military background, and San Antonio is one of the largest military installations in the United States. My husband was stationed there. Most airmen go through basic military training in San Antonio, and then of course you've got the most famous of Spanish missions. So it's like, if there was an embodiment of a city with our podcast, I think it would be San Antonio. And so I'm wondering, are there any other cultural influences there with the city based on those kind of aspects and what its identity is?
Well, the nickname of San Antonio is Military City, USA, because of
Yeah.
how many bases we have. We have one of the largest military slash veteran populations in the country, and so in
Mm-hmm.
the district that I'm running in, we do have a base, Air Force, Randolph Air Force Base, and so there are
Yeah.
a lot of military families that live there, and these are people who are absolutely voting and are very vocal about how they feel. And I've had a lot of those conversations. It's funny because when you talk about the military, you talk about it in terms of like they're a really transient community. But I've
Mm-hmm.
also found that a lot of folks who do come from military backgrounds often stay in the Bexar County area.
Yep.
And San Antonio itself, it's a really old city. We turned 300 a few years ago. We
Mm-hmm.
have some of the oldest missions in the country. One of them, Mission Espada, is actually in District 118, but it's yeah, and it's a beautiful area, right? And you can just see the culture on every street. I mean, people really like love where they live, and
Mm-hmm.
people here are really rooted, right? Like it's not we. I mean, you obviously there's a pretty big immigrant community. You see a lot of first generation, second generation. But like, for myself, I'm fourth generation. You see fifth generation, sixth generation, seven. So
Mm-hmm.
people have been here for a really long time. And so when you say things like where you went to high school, or for me, I coach t-ball at Five Diamonds. If I mention things like that, people understand
Yeah.
that things, and they're kind of able to get an idea of who you are. And that's really what it is, right? It's people just wanting to understand that like you're someone they can trust and someone that can do the right thing when it counts.
Right. Well, so going back to door knocking, I don't know about you, but whenever I'm at a group, there's a lot of activists and they will say, Kate, I'm fearful for democracy. I believe fascism is on the rise. And then we talk about what we're both doing to stay active. And then they'll draw the line in the sand and say, well, I don't knock doors, Kate. I just don't knock doors. And I remember being scared as well because, and I think that's where it's coming from. People are nervous to go knock on a stranger's door. They have no idea what's going to happen. And I had that nervousness too. And I got my dad and my mom to start door knocking with me. And some of my friends have come along as well who are just not political, but grew up in this area. And I think we had just such a good time. How would you respond to somebody who's so politically active and or just cares? And because to me, it really, in my opinion, works. Like I've had so many great conversations with people at the doors. And I think it also generates some enthusiasm and awareness of what is going on in a race. So do you have that experience? Like how would you answer that?
I agree. I think it's really effective. Face-to-face conversations is like the number one way to turn out people to have a conversation with somebody who's undecided or who maybe is like someone who's going to go turn out to vote, but just needs a little bit more information about the candidate. And it's how we help make sure that people down the ballot get elected as well. Because, when you have your big, statewide elections or your presidentials, like those people tend to know their names. But when it comes down to the down ballot, the folks that maybe affect their lives more on a day-to-day basis, they may not know. So those conversations are so crucial. Also because you're the best validator for your neighborhood and your community, right?
Mm-hmm.
People, they can hear from a candidate or, an organizer, or I should say like a staffer of the campaign. And that's great. And that's wonderful. But to hear somebody like from your own neighborhood talk about the issues like that are important to them and connecting on those values, like that's priceless, right? So
Right.
there's nothing that is more helpful to a campaign or to pushing an issue than having somebody who's like from the community talk about why they're supporting or not supporting it.
Yeah. Have you ever had moments where someone said, oh, you're the candidate? Like, I didn't realize I'm talking to the candidate.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'll have like the little walk card with me, and it's like a professional photo, right? And my hair is all done, and then by the time I get to their door, I'm like 4 hours in, my hair is in a jungle, it's like to the side, and my face is flushed. That's me.
Yeah, I know.
But that's
I had that too. I've had that too, where I'm like, I am out here working for it, and I don't look like my photo anymore. I don't have makeup on. My hair's a mess. Yes, that's me, ma'am. I am the candidate. That's my name. Maybe it doesn't look like me, but one of the things that we're trying to hypothesize on this podcast is, does that work? Like, does door knocking, and how do we spend our time? And I remember thinking, do I spend more time raising money, or do I spend more time knocking on doors and talking to people? Like, how does that come out for you? I mean, because I know you have to raise money at the same time.
Yes, and they're both really important, and it's making sure that you're carving out enough time to do both, and it's easier said than done, right? Because we all have lives, we all have people we take care of, we all have things we have to do, jobs, in your case, children to take care of. So it's tough, but I would say that in a district like mine that's highly competitive, it's so important that you're fundraising. It's really how you're able to be able to like, get out the word, especially as we get closer to election time, because campaigns, communication is very expensive, right? And so it's important that you're raising really early, so that way later down the line, you don't have to be so stressed out when it comes to that kind of stuff. That way you can kind of get out your message and amplify it in a way. But I would say that having a candidate out there knocking doors is so valuable. You have to kind of like weigh things like what time of the day you go, right? Making sure that you're kind of getting the most like face-to-face conversations as possible. So I think about that stuff. Like I don't go knock doors Sunday mornings, right? Because there's a lot of folks at church at that time. I try to connect people, maybe when they're coming home from work or picking up their kids, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So try to be really smart with your time.
Yeah. I know I would go door knock immediately after work, and I would catch people when they're making dinner and they're kind of caught off guard. I'm like, hi. And I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm a candidate. And they'd be like, oh, okay. Like you could just tell they're like, who is this person? And you'd have really great conversations. And then also here in Dallas, I knew when the Cowboys game was going on because people were either not opening their door or they were like annoyed and in their Cowboys gear. And I would say like, oh yeah, because I'm just so focused on the campaign that I have totally forgot football was happening. Does that ever happen to you?
Oh yeah, I knocked doors in Super Bowl Sunday. That was
Oh my gosh.
lowest contact rate ever. But I'm just like, oh, it's the afternoon, should be fine.
Yeah. Beautiful
No,
day. Yeah.
no, it's
Nobody wants to answer.
we got a lot of Cowboys fans in San Antonio and Spurs fans, obviously. So
Yeah.
I try to be smart about that. But these people that are on the list of voters that we have, they're very used to getting people coming to their doors. Maybe not always the candidate. So they're really good conversations, right? Because they're with people who do vote, who do have these conversations. So they're generally really helpful. And for me personally, it's how I'm able to really craft the communication of my campaign is because it's based off those conversations and like those issues. Like my campaign isn't just about the issues that I care about. It's really about addressing the issues that are most important to the neighborhood that I'm trying to represent.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important because we've gotten comments from people saying like, oh, if I'm not really a political person, will I understand what you're even talking about? And I had never knocked doors before, so I didn't even know what that process was like. So for the people that don't know and are thinking maybe I should, I signed up for a campaign like yours, and they usually put out links like on Mobilize, and then we downloaded an app called Minivan, and what you're saying is that in that the campaign has targeted specific people that they want to talk to based on data and voter history. And so you're not just knocking every random door in your neighborhood. You're really being like strategic and analytical about the doors that you're trying to knock. Like maybe in a general election, you're looking at people who have flipped both sides. Maybe they've voted for a Republican in a primary and they voted for a Democrat in a primary. They usually turn out in general elections. And so you're looking at those people. They're not really random, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's because, time is the most valuable resource that we have on a campaign. So although it would be like amazing if I could knock every single door on every single street, but this district is huge, right? Like it's not possible. So you try to be really smart with your time. And so just like you said, like when you're in your primary, you talk to folks who typically just vote in those primaries. And then versus the general election where you kind of want to talk to a bigger pool of people, undecided people who tend to kind of waver. So, and when you're the candidate, like that's like one of the most important places to be because you're going to be able to have that conversation in a way that no one else can.
Yeah. Yeah. And like some people focus on voter registration of people who've never voted before, and that's great. We want to turn out those people. But in ours, it's like, okay, who's a likely voter? And I have a finite amount of time, finite amount of money. And you're trying to figure out, okay, this person has always voted in a general election. I need to talk to that person. And it's interesting because we have that data from the Texas party. And which is odd for me as somebody used to protect data as a prosecutor to think that we have all this data out there, but it really is. And it's really helpful from a candidate perspective to be able to say, okay, I know that person at that door votes in every election. And it's smart for me to start there. And I really need to talk to that person. And maybe I send mailers and texts out to like a broader universe. But when I'm actually like knocking on a door, I'm going to spend 30 minutes with somebody or however long some people, chew your ear off. It's just makes sense.
You're right. Like it's really important that we're talking to all the right people, and it's all public data. It's all data that anybody can see, because it's not that we can see like who you voted for. We can just see that you voted,
right?
And that's the important piece of it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, this is all we're not doing this illegally. This is data that Republicans have and the party has. It's protected. We're not. Yeah, as a former prosecutor, I don't, abide by taking data of people, but it's something that is public. But again, you don't know who you voted for. I couldn't tell you whether you voted in this, for Colin Allred or James Tallarico or any of the other candidates, but I know that you voted in a primary. And I also
Exactly.
know you voted in a general. I don't know if you voted for Trump or Kamala. I just know you voted in that general election and you're registered. So, but going back to something you said at the beginning, which was that you're feeling a different vibe, like you're out there knocking on doors. Can you talk about that? Like what's going on? Because the closest we got in the election in Texas was in the midterm for Trump in 2018. And we got within 2 points for Beto, 3 points with Justin Nelson in the AG race. So I'm sorry, I think I interrupted you, but can you speak to that? Like what's going on?
Well, for me, because I don't just talk to people on the doors. I talk to folks at church. When I'm at the games for T-ball, I'm pointing because the T-ball stadium is literally, baseball stadium is literally across the street from where I am.
I
But
love that.
it's easy. But
Just
when
walk
I
over.
folks, I know, and I actually coach every single Sunday afternoon. But so I talk to people, every single day. If I'm not, I also volunteer for Meals on Wheels. I'm having so many different conversations with folks, and so it's not always like that likely Democratic voter. But I will say that I've noticed that folks are feeling like, well, last year, I think there was a lot of economic anxiety, and there was for example, there was, somebody who maybe who was their number 3 or number 2 issue was all about abortion access, but their number 1 issue was making sure that there was enough food on the table for their kids. And so those people were voting at the top of the ticket, maybe Republican, because I think that they felt like there were a lot of promises being made about that were speaking to them, right? And now people are feeling like a lot of those promises have been broken, and things are worse off than they were last year. And so a lot of folks are trying to understand well, who's really going to help people like me, right? And I think that Democrats understand, and I think you mentioned that the chairman also is, thinking this too, is we got to get back to the party of being for the working people, right? I've always been a Democrat. I started voting Democrat in 2008 for Barack Obama. And I remember I called my mom right before I was going to go vote, because there was a lot of down ballot people. And I was just like, Mom, who do I vote for?
Who are these?
She was like, straight ticket. She's like, we're Democrats. Yeah. And she's like, we're too poor for us not to be Democrats. So, it was always instilled in me that Democrats are fighting for blue collar people. And I think we got to make sure that people understand that. And this cycle, what I'm doing is I'm really focused on economic issues, because that's what people care about, right? That's really what folks want to know and understand is, am I going to have enough money for groceries, but how am I going to be able to put my kids through college? And it's a lot of bigger conversations. So, for me, it's making sure that I'm having those conversations, because folks are really starting to feel like Republicans have bamboozled them.
I think they have. But amen. So I think what's interesting is the messaging shift. Do you have any other takeaways from the last election, maybe as far as people not even coming out to vote, or why they may not have voted at all?
I think that Vice President Harris didn't bring out the amount of people that we previously expected her to. And for those reasons, I think a lot of folks just stayed home. And I think that people understand that they can't make that mistake again.
Right.
It's not a presidential year. And so what we're going to have to figure out is what does that look like for a midterm year? And I know you mentioned James Tallarico. We have Colin Allred. I think I just saw that John Rosenthal just announced that he's running for railroad commissioner. And it feels like there's really, really strong people are popping up every other week. And I think that is so key to how we turn out folks, by having a down ballot, but also at the very top of the ticket, really big statewide ideal candidates that are going to excite voters, that are going to be able to, just talk their language, right? Feel like they see. And so I feel like that's going to be so key to this, and I'll just kind of talking about the U.S. Senate race. I love the things that Colin talks about. I love that he played football. A lot of us love that. I
Mm-hmm.
also love what James Tallarico talks about, and like right now it sounds like he has a lot of momentum. Like that, like that's exciting. Like we need
Yeah.
more of that. I'm really excited to see who else runs for governor. I saw that there was a rumor
Mm-hmm.
that Representative Gina Hinojosa might jump in. That would be
Yeah, I heard that too.
amazing. So
Yeah.
can you imagine having a female statewide candidate and then having her become our next
I
governor?
know. Ann Richards style. Yeah, let's get
That's
back to
right.
that.
That's
I
so
know. And
fingers
we would
crossed.
have Vicky Goodwin for
And
lieutenant governor.
right,
Yeah, who's also running.
absolutely.
Uh, I would prefer to have a female in our Senate race so we could have like a straight ticket. But that, hey, we love Colin and James Elrico and Terry Virts. They seem great. But yeah, I think you're right. Well, I was wondering how you felt year over year from an organizing perspective, because it felt like in Beto's, so that's when I started really knocking doors. He was kind of the person that brought a lot of field organizing together. He opened a field office. There was a lot of coordination with block walking, and you saw just a ton of signs, and of course signs don't dictate an election, but it just felt like there was a lot of that infrastructure that was being driven by that kind of race.
Mhm.
Whereas in last years, it didn't seem like that was happening as much from the Senate race that was happening.
Mhm.
And so from a candidate perspective, like who are you reaching out and relying on the parties? Are you coordinating with other candidates? Like, how do you see that?
For the general election, I think it makes sense for there to be a coordinated effort, from the top of the ticket all the way down, and like working with county parties and working with the state party and other big national partners. I think all of that makes sense. For me, I know that because you went for the state house, it's like the rules are like a little, not, I don't want to say different, but it's a little like crazy in Texas. So for instance, like, we don't have contribution limits, which is like a
No, yeah.
because it's like I could make a crazy ask and ask for
Yeah.
what we really
Yeah.
need, but that means so can the other guy, right? And so
Yep.
these can be really really big races. I'm really proud to say that last year I raised more than any other first time state rep candidate, Dem or Republican, has ever done in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's like trying to make sure that I'm going to get back there and raise the money. But like that means that like all that, everything that I'm doing isn't just for my campaign. And I understand that, right? Because it's not just about electing me, it's about electing Democrats up and down the ballot. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
so I always like think about that whenever I'm doing messaging and things like, because like I want people to know that I'm Democrat, right? It's not just about electing Kristian Carranza. It's about electing strong Democrats who are focused on helping working class people. Like that's what my campaign's about.
Yeah, well, you outraised me for sure. But I saw that. I was following you. We didn't know each other. And I was thinking to myself, how'd she do it? I mean, what's your secret to fundraising? Is it time on the phone? And how do you feel about this cycle? Because I thought I'd heard from some friends who are also running that they're hearing some donor fatigue. Like the people are like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to donate. I donated a ton last cycle. I think people are rearing up again. Like I think that was just a blip.
Yeah. And it's, it can feel like early days, but now we're kind of getting into it, right? We're past Labor Day. I would say yeah, you got it. But the number one way that I raised money was just doing the call time, right? And don't get me wrong, it can be a grind to like make those calls, and get the no's. But when you get the yeses, it's just
Mm-hmm.
it's like the best feeling ever.
Yeah.
And how you can be good at call, because anyone can do call time. It's just about getting comfortable with your ask, right? And for me,
Mm-hmm.
it's like I don't have like a comfort problem with asking donors to invest in my campaign, because it means that I'm investing in my community, right? Because this is
Mm-hmm.
bigger than me, right? And it's bigger than one
Yep.
election. And then the
Yeah.
other piece of it is that it's not like I'm asking like the single mom who has to work 2 jobs for her time to volunteer my campaign. Like that's a different type of conversation, right?
Yeah.
I'm asking folks
Mm-hmm.
who have the capability and interest to help support a campaign with a contribution. That they just want to make sure that they know you, right.
Yeah.
So it's completely different. And so if you don't have a problem asking for money, anybody could be a good candidate. It's just making.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wonder whether one of the hypotheses a pet project is trying to figure out how we can get more people like you to run. And I wonder if the trepidation is in asking people for money and fundraising and time away from family. But it's not rocket science, and you can do it. And when I heard call time, before I became a candidate, I was like, what is that? Is that an app? Is this like what is this?
Yeah.
What is call time? I need call time. And it's just time on the phone. You've done some research on donors and you figured out, okay, this person, Bob, donated to Kristian last cycle. So I might call Bob and say like, hey, I love Kristian. She and I are friends. She and I have the same values. Would you donate to my campaign too? And getting them on the phone and just convincing them that that's worthy of their time. And a friend of ours, he has told me that we don't have a money problem. Of course, we have a lot of great candidates like you to invest in. It's just figuring out where to put your dollars. And you got a lot of people who are asking for your money. You get texts every day. Like I think Gavin Newsom, I'm on his list. Like I'm just constantly getting asked by people outside of the state. Apparently every military person has me on their list because I keep getting their numbers on my phone. And it's like, I'm a veteran running for Congress. And I'm like, I love that. I want to give to you. But what would you say as far as, if somebody had a nice round number, because you can donate to a candidate, you can donate to your county party, you can donate to the statewide party. Like, how would you recommend, obviously donating to you and a candidate in your area, but do you have any recommendations on how you should spend your money? Like if you had $100 every month, like how would you recommend somebody spend it?
I would say that giving directly to the candidate is always going to be the best way to like use your dollar. If that is like what your goal is to help get that person elected. I would say that like, if you are going to be a recurring donor, even if it's like not this like, whatever huge number you have in your head, even if it's like a $20 recurring donation, like that adds up. And like that, like recurring donations is what truly helps so many candidates like me. So, I mean, I think like even if it's a lower number, becoming a recurring donor is going to be one of the best things you can do. And then in terms of, if you want to spread your money, I think like always giving to your county party is always going to be one of the best things you can do as well, because what they do is they help support local candidates and they do a lot of really good work. Bear County Democratic Party here, they do wonderful work. And a big part of what they're doing right now is they're trying to find more precinct chairs. And like I mentioned earlier, we talked about the example of like your friend who is a little nervous about knocking doors. And it's like, oh, like if you're from that neighborhood, it's like you're like the best validator. Precinct chairs are the best validators for candidates. And in House District 118, where I'm running, because a lot of it is like pretty rural, we're missing precinct chairs in those areas. And so Bear County Party, what their initiative is right now is they're looking for, but they're like hosting events. They're like having one. I mean, they're like trying to find these people in these like hard to reach areas, and they're doing that work. So that work helps candidates like me. So that's why I think like investing in those county parties is also a really, really crucial place to put your money.
Yeah, I have a really good friend who just started getting active, and I put her in touch with our vice chair, or she got in touch with her in this area. And she was like, already I'm being asked to be a precinct chair. And I'm like, well, girl, you should be. What are you doing? And I think for most people,
they're doing their jobs.
Yes, exactly. Like, thank God. But I don't think I even really knew what a precinct chair did when I started. And yet the first thing they said was like, go call your precinct chairs. You got to go talk to them first. Like you got to go out there. And they are so important that they were the first call, like that someone recommended me to, because they're really the cheerleader and captain of a neighborhood. I mean, we call them a precinct, but really it's just a square, depending on the density of your population, it's just an area of a neighborhood where that person lives, and they are in charge to like get out the vote. And some of them are more active than others. And we have a lot of people who aren't even represented, as you mentioned. I think Kendall talked about in our first episode, is that like almost half of our state doesn't have a precinct chair. I mean, it's just insane. So I think if I were to, and I should go back to get that data, and I'll just refer y'all to our first episode, but the point was that I didn't even know where to go to begin to even look to see where my precinct chair is, who they are. And I literally just went to Dallas County Democratic, their website, and there's a button where you can see who is the precinct chair for your area. And I looked up the voter, because you don't know, like, what's the map, like what my precinct number was. And I could figure out from my county what my precinct number was and then who that chair was. So
totally.
Yeah.
You're so savvy with it. You already know where to go look and search. I always tell people, like, if all else fails, just Google your way out of it. Call the county Democratic Party. They'll like quickly set you up with the right person. Yeah. So whenever I decided to run the first time and the second time, because when you're a candidate, like obviously, like you have to research the district, right, and kind of understand like who are the players, and so you make a lot of phone calls before you even announce, right, and you have these kind of conversations with folks, letting them know who you are. And so when I did that with precinct chairs when I ran the first time, and and I knew a couple, I didn't know everybody, but the second time, I remember being like, hey, the gang's getting back together. Like these were these ride or die supporters, volunteers. These are my people, right? Like when I get to heaven, like these are going to be the people I pull in with me and hang out forever. Like these are my people. And so I was really excited to make those calls, because I knew, like, when I said I was going to run again, like they were going to be like the first to show up, and they have been. So that's why I say we have to make sure that we're doing everything to support precinct chairs.
Yeah. Be a precinct chair if you can. And I think people should just look up, even if you have one, because I think that's really telling. And I know who my precinct chair is, so I for sure see her every time I go vote. But I wanted to ask you, right now we have the redistricting fight that's happening in our state. And we asked Kendall and other people, like, okay, this may not affect your like the statewide races, because you can't gerrymander a statewide race. But we ask whether it is something that is affecting our vote total and voter apathy, and whether people think like, oh, my vote won't matter, so I'm just not going to go out and vote, even though if they, every blue dot matters in a statewide race. Like, do you see that anecdotally from your area in San Antonio? Like, do you see voter apathy in a very gerrymandered, because yours is a flippable district, I imagine, and it's the most flippable in the state. And so do you still see that as an issue from the congressional districts that are being redrawn?
Well, so the state house district that I'm running in itself is a very gerrymandered district, which is kind of funny, because usually when you think about gerrymandered districts, you don't think about them being like competitive, right? They're drawn in a way that where it's like inevitable, it's like absolute that one party will get it over the other. But mine was drawn in a way that made it really hard for the neighborhood that I actually live in to have one solid voice. So I grew up in Harlandale. It's on the south side of San Antonio. It's kind of, because I mentioned earlier, there's parts of the rural parts of the district. It's a very urban, very working class, majority Latino district, or Latino neighborhood. So it's been cut up. So now it's not a very big neighborhood, but now it's represented by 3 state representatives.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy, right? By doing so, they're diluting the Latino, the Latino community, and our ability to pick our preferred candidate. And our preferred candidate, that doesn't mean it's a Latino candidate. It could be, anybody, right? But you're diluting their ability to be able to choose one candidate. And specifically for my neighborhood, it's historically voted together and solidly Democratic. But it's also an area that has lower turnout compared to the northern part of the district, because it's a pretty big district within Bexar County. So and they do it in this way because they're trying to pick up as many votes while saying at the same time, no, this is still a Latino majority district. You didn't see the Latino outside. It's like, yeah, but it's a lower turnout area, right?
Yeah.
So you gotta watch out for those kind of things. But anyway, it's it's absolutely affected by the congressional gerrymandering that's happening, because people don't know who they're voting for. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the problem. When I went to put out yard signs last year, I remember I would like go deliver a yard sign and they'd be like, "Oh, can you go to my cousin? Can you give her one too?" And I'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
"Where does she live?" Like literally lived 4 streets away, was not in the district, and it's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Like they're so confused, like they don't know who they're voting for. Where I live right now, it's Congressman Henry Cuellar, but before 2020 it was Texas, it was a Texas House District 23, which is Tony
Mm-hmm.
Gonzalez, and now it's going to be this new Texas 35, Brad Kassar, who
Oh, yeah.
is now running in Lloyd Doggett's, but it's
Yeah.
that new open congressional seat. So people are just, it's confusing, right? And
Who
people,
is my, yeah.
yeah,
Why
and
should I vote? I don't even know who's going to be on the ticket. Yeah.
people cynical, right, about politics.
Right. Yeah. And I wonder if that's what is happening is that people feel cynical. So they just don't want to engage in the process. Plus, maybe they don't think their vote matters. And maybe we're also not messaging to them correctly. And so, when we're talking about your district, is it a bellwether for the state writ large? The experiences that you're having, I don't think are dissimilar than to the ones that we're experiencing here in the Dallas County area on
Mhm.
those. Because some people are like, who's going to be my next? Congressional District 33 is going to replace basically the heart of Dallas, which is Mark Veazey, but Mark
Yeah.
Veazey was predominantly in Tarrant County, and so it's like, which is Fort Worth, and so there's just like who's going to run, who's not going to run. And that's just really unfair to our incredible congressional leaders here. And also for the people like you who are also down ballot and are going to be impacted by that. But it
Yeah.
sounds like from the beginning, you're anticipating more turnout though in this midterm, which I think if you look at voter data, traditionally you don't have as many people turning out in a midterm as they do in a presidential year because they're really excited to vote for a president. This in the midterm, the president's not on the ticket. And so we see a lot less people coming out. Is
Yeah.
that affecting your analysis of what your like voter universe is and what you're anticipating?
So I think in terms of like overall turnout, it'll be slightly higher than other midterms before, but so it won't be like the overall number likely won't be bigger than a presidential. But when it comes to turnout of likely Democrats, I think that percentage wise that'll be bigger, and we need it to be bigger, right? Because it's a 50-50,
Yes. Yeah.
and so we gotta get over the finish line. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I meant by we're going to see increased turnout. We're going to see increased turnout of Democrats and people who and maybe they, like I mentioned, voted Republican for economic reasons and they didn't feel like Democrats were fighting for them. Right. But I think
Yeah.
now that people understand that there are a lot of broken promises and that Trump actually can't change grocery prices, and
Yes.
tariffs are really hurting communities, especially communities like San Antonio, where international trade is a really big industry. People I think, are going to understand that Republicans are not going to be doing what they said that they were going to do, and they're going to look to Democrats to be able to do that for them.
Well, I think we're nearing the end of our podcast, but if I'm hearing you correctly, I think the goals and takeaways are, we got a message to the people, the working class values and what you're saying about grocery prices, and that Republicans did not deliver on their promises about prices. And then precinct chairs, obviously, we love precinct chairs, and then recurring donations to our candidates, especially down ballot. Are there any other things that you would recommend that people do at home if they're saying, "Oh, I'm feeling really hopeless. I'm feeling lost." Like, what do you think they should be doing at home?
I think they need to have conversations with their families about like what are the issues that are really affecting us and who are the people who are actually going to help us, right?
Hmm.
And like start like looking into some of these candidates, because I know that it can be a little overwhelming when you see like a sample ballot of like 15 names and you don't recognize half of them. Like I get it, right? But
Hmm.
it's we got to make sure that we're voting, because oftentimes communities like the one that I come from, we're not represented well, right? And you can see it if you like look at the Texas legislature, for example. I mean, out of the 150 seats, only 15 of them are Latinas. And like, and
Mm.
if you look at the
Yeah.
makeup of Texas, especially the makeup of where I come from, I mean, it's not representative. The average
Mm-hmm.
age of a San Antonian is 34 years old. The average age of a Texan is 35 years old. I'm 35 myself. And that's absolutely not the average age of a state rep in
Yeah.
Texas. And so, we got to really make sure that we're the people that we need in office look like us, right? And so we got to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that we're voting, and we got to make sure that we're doing the research and we're talking to our families, and really just engaging in a way that we haven't done before.
Right. Well, thank you so much. I've got only a couple final questions for you as we wrap up, which is if people want to support you, speaking of recurring donations, where can they find you? And then other than Taylor Swift and T-ball, what do you got going on outside of politics? Because we're all human beings too. Like politics isn't the whole thing that we do.
So you can go to my website. It's christianfortexas.com. My first name is Christian with the K. And I know
Yeah.
they're always like, what? How do you say that? It's Christian for
Mm-hmm.
Texas, all spelled out, .com. And and if you want to also get involved with the campaign in different ways, because we do a lot of volunteering, things like that, just go to the sign up page there. You can sign up to volunteer. Follow me on social media. If you just go to
You are prolific. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm trying not to go crazy on a album release day and tweet all about Taylor today. But follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm on Substack now. I'm constantly posting videos about conversations that I'm having on the doors and the issues that matter. And in terms of what I do outside of campaign, I really spent a lot of time with my family. We all still live here in Harlandale in the same neighborhood. My two tias and all their daughters. We're a family of girls. I don't know why, but it's just we just are. And so I really love spending time. If we're not going to the thrift store, we go to the Texas Thrift over here on South Florida's and Military like almost every other day. It's what I wear. Like my entire candidate wardrobe is Texas Thrift, and my two tias are like the people that like put together every single outfit I wear.
Yes.
And so that's what I
Love
do.
it.
I spend time with my family.
And you have a pretty big family, don't you?
I do. Yeah. There's a lot of us, mostly girls, like I said.
Yeah, I think that was what we had in common. I come from a big Catholic family and have like 60 cousins, so it's insane. Every birthday and get together is just an event.
It's the best. Yeah. No, I often, I'll like tell a story about something, and then someone's like, "Dang, you have a lot of cousins." Like it's because there's usually like a cousin story. They're like, "Dang, girl."
Yeah.
But
and they're good at door knocking for you. I had a lot of cousins door knocking for me. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. I would hear that all the time. They're like, "Yeah, it's like someone like your aunt or your cousin." Yeah. And that's the best.
Yeah.
That's like if there's like a hierarchy of like how important it is to like, or who's voting or who is knocking on the doors. It's like candidate, spouse/family of a candidate. Then it's like precinct chair and person who lives in the neighborhood. Like those are the top people.
Yes. I will meet people who say, "I voted for you, Kate, because of your dad," because I talked to him at the door. Aww. And I'm like, "Oh, thank you so much." Well, Kristian, that is it for today. And thank you so much. My parents gave me some advice. They said, you should sign off by saying, "God bless Texas." So that's what I'm going to say. We will see y'all next week, and God bless Texas.
Bye, y'all.
You can follow us on all socials at Mission Texas Podcast. Email us at missiontexaspodcast@gmail.com. This episode is edited by Juan Jose Flores. Our music bumper is by Adam Pickerel, and our cover art is by Tina Sohn.